Jon Roxton versus Daemon Targaryen. Who won the fight? House of the Dragon Explained. Spoiler warning. This video contains major spoilers for House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 8, including the Battle of Tumbleton and the shocking fight between Daemon Targaryen and Jon Roxton. If you haven't watched the finale, this is your warning. So, who actually won the fight between Jon Roxton and Daemon Targaryen? The answer is more complicated than you might expect, because Daemon doesn't defeat Jon Roxton, and Roxton doesn't actually kill Daemon either. But for a brief moment, Daemon is in serious danger of losing his life. The fight happens during the chaos of the Battle of Tumbleton. Daemon arrives at the battle riding Caraxes, and his goal is to break through the high tower defenses. Caraxes helps open the gates, allowing the Black forces to push into Tumbleton. But once the battle spreads through the town, Daemon finds himself fighting on the ground, and that's when he comes face to face with Jon Roxton. Jon Roxton, known as Bold Jon Roxton, is one of the Green commanders fighting for Ormond Hightower. He may not have the same legendary reputation as Daemon, but he is an extremely dangerous warrior. And there is one major advantage Roxton has: his size. Roxton is physically bigger and stronger than Daemon. He also carries a Valyrian steel sword. Daemon has Darksister, his own Valyrian steel blade. So this isn't simply an ordinary soldier attacking a famous prince. These are two highly skilled warriors fighting with some of the rarest weapons in Westeros. But there is another important difference. Daemon is older. By the time of the Dance of the Dragons, Daemon is approaching 50. He has decades of combat experience behind him, but he is no longer the younger warrior we saw earlier in his life. Roxton is able to take advantage of that. When the two begin fighting, Roxton immediately puts Daemon under enormous pressure. Daemon tries to defend himself, but Roxton's size and strength give him a major advantage. And suddenly, one of the most feared warriors in Westeros is the one struggling to survive. This is important because House of the Dragon has spent years building Daemon's reputation. Daemon has fought in the Stepstones. He has killed enemies with Darksister. He has commanded armies. He has ridden Caraxes into some of the most dangerous battles of the dance. And yet, against Roxton, Daemon is nearly overwhelmed. Roxton is bigger, he is aggressive, and he doesn't give Daemon much room to recover. For a moment, it looks as though Daemon could actually die there. But then something completely unexpected happens. Silverwing enters the chaos. Dragonfire tears through the battlefield, and the structure underneath the two fighters begins to collapse. The overpass gives way. Daemon and Roxton are separated, and that collapse saves Daemon's life. So, who won? Technically, there is no official winner. The fight is interrupted before either man can finish the other. But if we're judging the fight based on what we actually see on screen, Jon Roxton had the upper hand. Daemon was the one in serious danger. Roxton had managed to overpower him and was close to killing him before the battlefield itself intervened. And that is what makes the scene so interesting. Daemon didn't suddenly become a bad fighter, he simply met an opponent who had advantages that Daemon couldn't easily overcome. Roxton was younger.
He was larger. He was extremely aggressive. And he was fighting during one of the most chaotic battles in Westeros. Daemon also wasn't fighting in a controlled duel. There were dragons flying overhead, soldiers were attacking each other, buildings were collapsing, and fire was spreading throughout Tumbleton. The environment itself was almost as dangerous as the warriors. And this is one of the reasons the scene works so well. It shows that even someone as famous as Daemon Targaryen isn't invincible. Daemon has spent much of the story behaving as though he can overcome almost anything. But Tumbleton reminds us that the Dance of the Dragons is different. There are too many variables. A dragon can suddenly appear. A building can collapse. An ally can betray you. And one mistake can mean death. The fight also tells us something about Jon Roxton. Roxton isn't simply a background green soldier. He is one of the few warriors who manages to push Daemon to the edge. And his Valyrian steel sword makes the fight even more dangerous. Daemon's Dark Sister is one of the most famous swords in Westeros, but Roxton has a Valyrian steel blade of his own. That means neither warrior has an obvious advantage when it comes to their weapons. The difference comes down to the men using them. Daemon has experience. Roxton has physical strength. And in this particular encounter, Roxton's physical advantage becomes extremely important. But there's another interesting detail. Daemon survives. And that means the fight doesn't end with Roxton becoming the man who killed the rogue prince. Instead, their confrontation becomes one of the biggest unanswered moments of the battle. Daemon escapes the fight and eventually sees the devastation surrounding him. Tumbleton is burning, people are dying, and the battle has descended into complete chaos. This affects Daemon deeply, because he begins to see the consequences of the war he is helping to fight. The destruction around him isn't just another military victory. It is ordinary people suffering, and that becomes an important moment for Daemon's character. Meanwhile, Jon Roxton continues through the aftermath. He eventually finds Ormond Hightower's burned body among the destruction. Ormond's death is another major turning point in the battle. But importantly, Roxton did not kill Ormond. Roddy the Ruin attacks Ormond and fights him on the walls. Their confrontation ends with Ormond being killed before the dragonfire consumes the area. So there are actually several major warrior versus warrior moments happening at Tumbleton. Daemon versus Roxton, Roddy versus Ormond, and the dragons fighting above them. That is what makes the battle so chaotic. And it also shows how House of the Dragon has changed the events from Fire and Blood. The television version combines and rearranges several events from the book. The first battle of Tumbleton in Fire and Blood does not feature Daemon fighting Jon Roxton in this exact way. The show creates this confrontation as part of its own version of the battle, and it works because Daemon needs a genuine physical threat. If Daemon simply walked through every soldier at Tumbleton, the battle would feel unrealistic. Instead, Roxton gives him a serious challenge. He proves that even a legendary warrior can be beaten. And perhaps the biggest question is what would have happened if Silverwing's fire hadn't destroyed the overpass? Could Roxton have killed Daemon? Based on what we see, absolutely. Roxton had Daemon in a very dangerous position. But we'll never know. The battlefield itself decides the outcome, and that's actually fitting for the Dance of the Dragons. So many characters believe they control their own destiny, but again and again, something completely unexpected changes everything. Daemon survives, Roxton survives, but neither man truly wins the fight. If anything, Roxton wins the encounter because he proves that Daemon can be overpowered. And Daemon wins simply by surviving. That's why calling this a victory for either side isn't completely accurate. The real winner was chaos. And that's exactly what Tumbleton represents. The war has reached a point where there are no clean victories anymore. Dragons are burning soldiers from both sides. Commanders are dying, alliances are collapsing, and even the most experienced warriors are struggling to survive. The fight between Jon Roxton and Daemon is therefore more than just a cool sword fight. It shows us how dangerous the dance has become. Daemon is still one of the greatest warriors in Westeros, but he is not unstoppable. And Jon Roxton proves that. So, who won the fight? There was no definitive winner. The fight was interrupted when Silverwing's dragonfire caused the overpass to collapse. But based on the actual fight, Jon Roxton had the advantage and nearly killed Daemon. Daemon survived because the battlefield changed around them. And that makes the encounter one of the most surprising moments of the Season 3 finale. What do you think? If Silverwing hadn't destroyed the overpass, would Jon Roxton have killed Daemon? Or do you think Daemon would eventually have turned the fight around? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this House of the Dragon breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more Season 3 spoilers, character explanations, battle breakdowns, and theories. Because after Tumbleton, the Dance of the Dragons is only getting more brutal.